Okay, call this public hearing to order. I'm going to turn it over to our city planner, Jacob Gretchen.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
This is a quasi-judicial land use hearing. The subject of this hearing is a request for a development agreement. The subject property is identified on the county assessor map as lot 7000 and 5801 on map 4 North, 1 West, 6DA. The applicant is Kessie Engineering and Consulting. The owner is Rich Bailey Construction. Because quasi-judicial proceedings require the observance of certain procedural formalities, we must take a few moments to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. So, first, does any member of the council wish to declare an ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias in this matter? I see none. So then the next question is, does anyone from the audience want to object to the ability of a counselor to make a fair decision? And this is strictly for if the council, if you think there's the, but you don't have any challenge to a specific counselor? Okay, thank you. Generally, the order of the proceedings will be as follows: required statements, as I'm doing right now, staff report, which I will do after this, then the applicant's presentation, those in favor of the application, neutral testimony, those opposed, rebuttal by the applicant, final questions, close of the record, deliberations, and decision. Following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to our code and ORS 197763, Section 5. The substantive criteria are Oregon Revised Statutes 94.504 to 94.528. Those are the ones that address development agreements. And then also Chapter 17.40 of our code, which pertains to wetlands. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the applicable standards as described or other standards which you believe apply, such as the comprehensive plan, land use regulation, or other things in the code. Failure to raise an issue, including constitutional or other issues related to the proposed conditions of approval in the hearing in person or in writing, or failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the approval authority an opportunity to respond to the issue, precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue, and precludes an action for damages in circuit court. So, with that fun stuff behind us, let's talk about why we're here. So, this is a development agreement, and it is the final public hearing bureaucratic step of this subdivision. The first two were one, adoption of the plan development overlay. That was a couple months ago now. And that went before you. And the second one was approval of the preliminary plat. So when we subdivide property, well, normal subdivisions, this one's a little more complex. It's two general steps. There's a preliminary plat, where the land division is approved in concept, and then there's the final plat, which is the official document that slices her up so you can sell the lots. The Planning Commission has reviewed and approved the preliminary plat. They did that not too long ago. And that is a representation of what they approved. 18 lots. You have an extension of public right-of-way, Westboro Way there, which branches off into a cul-de-sac that feeds these lots. And then you have some private roads in there as well. There's a private road off of Sykes, which serves 5 or 6 lots down here. And then there's also a private road off the cul-de-sac serving these lots there. Some important features to note other than the irregular geometry of the site include this wetland here. This is a significant wetland to the city. It's what we call a type 2 significant wetland and includes a 50-foot upland protection buffer, which you can see here on the plan. There is also a Bonneville Power easement through here, which will give some of these people some mighty big yards. And then another thing we're going to talk about is this little piece of open space tract there north of the proposed Westboro right-of-way. And that's just a function of road alignment because of where the existing right-of-way was at and the property line. You know, you can't just take a road and shove it over 40 feet. That wouldn't make sense. And so you have this kind of leftover area, and we're going to talk about that a little bit very soon. I should note development agreements do go before the Planning Commission for recommendation, and at their last meeting, the Planning Commission considered this and voted unanimously to recommend approval to you folks, the council. So why do we have this development agreement? Well, let me make sure I'm not off track here. Yeah, so the main reason is, excuse me, our wetland chapter. Not the simplest chapter, but it does give us guidance when we have situations like this. And basically what it says is when you have a property with a wetland, you can manipulate the protection zone with the development agreement. And when I say manipulate, usually our code would say if you have a wetland, it's supposed to be dedicated as a tract. And when I say tract, that is opposed to a lot which you are going to build a house on. A tract is something set aside for a different purpose. It could be steep slopes, it could be a playground, it could be a pump station. In this case, it's wetlands. And our code says that the protection buffer is supposed to be included in that tract. But it also says that with a development agreement, you can take that buffer and include half of it as part of the lots that abut it. And that's exactly what you see here. And given that flexibility, we get to do all this paper pushing and public hearing. The joy that it is. So that's why we are here. So basically, we're not re-looking at the preliminary plat. It's essentially dealing with common ownership and management of common spaces, to break it down in simple terms. And so we have all the conditions of the preliminary plat. We don't need to get into those. But one thing that we do have with the development agreement are special conditions. And there are 4 that are being recommended. 2 of them were originally in the report before the Planning Commission meeting. 1 came out of the Planning Commission meeting. And then 1 is one I kind of thought about based on some of the things discussed at the Planning Commission meeting. So the 4th one, they didn't really have time to vet, but I don't anticipate any controversy given something that Rich emailed us this morning. So the first special condition is a restoration plan if there are any impacts to the wetland protection buffer. I don't anticipate much, but there could be some. And then what's called a PAMP, or a protection area management plan, that makes sure it's managed in perpetuity and the responsibility of the homeowners association. So that's one of them. The second one is simply that the development agreement is referenced on the final plat. We always like to make sure legal documents are cross-referenced. It makes life a lot easier to find stuff in the future. So the one that came from the Planning Commission, this one's kind of a mouthful if you're reading it on page 4 of the report, But this has to do with the fence. So people like to have fences, dogs, keep people out, keep people in. And so this talks about installing a fence along the 50-foot protection line, and that we review the fence, and that it be uniform, that there's a gate for each lot so people can actually get back there and enjoy the wetland. There's a trail proposed through the wetland protection zone, I should note, and that the type and design provide maximum protection of the protection zone while also minimizing visual obstruction. So there's a lot of rules about having a certain type of fence put in there, proper designed, so there's some continuity between people's yards, enjoyment at the wetland, but it also serves the typical function of why you have a fence. So there's that. And then the other one is what I thought about. And this has to do with this little piece of property here. On this map, they're showing it as a tract, and that's because it was just leftover space. There's really no use proposed for this, and we've ran into issues where, with the development agreement and the homeowners association, the probability of that happening in this case is much reduced, but we've ran into issues where subdivision occurs, there's a tract that you can't build on, so it's just kind of carved off separately. They don't pay the taxes, the county takes ownership of it. Some person, unsuspecting or not, buys a piece of property for $1,000. Hey, sweet deal, I got this property. Comes us to, yeah, what can I do with it? Well, it's a tract, not much. Not the most comfortable situation, and potentially could result in problems. Well, I have this land, why can't I have my RV on it? And then the neighbors get excited, things like that. So my recommendation in here is that that not be a tract, that it either be removed from the property by lot line adjustment, and the neighbors to the north have already expressed interest. And what Rich sent us this morning was this tentative agreement for them to purchase that, which I'm totally in favor of. It's an unnecessary area. But if that didn't happen, then this, thank you, I don't have to keep jumping. This would be tied with these lots. Usually we avoid having properties bisected by rights-of-way. In this case, though, I would recommend it just because it's kind of a pointless tract. But if the person buys it, fantastic. The other advantage of it not being a tract, let's say they didn't do a lot line adjustment. You can't really do a lot line adjustment with a tract. They would have to buy it. And then you get into this, you have this weird piece of property that could end up separate in the future. If it's part of these, you can still do a lot line adjustment. You would have to do what's called a replat if this was a tract with that, and that's just more hassle. That would probably be a barrier to someone owning it. So that's the fourth one. Any questions?
Can you elaborate a bit on the developers agreement and the homeowners association, where you're at in a working of or the contractual agreement from the developer to the homeowners group? Where are we with that?
It's a requirement written in the conditions.
And in those conditions, then the developer is responsible for the wetland until the homeowners association is formed, because it certainly isn't formed now.
No.
And so who negotiates that, and what are the timelines of negotiating it till the homeowners association gets into place?
They have to form that prior to the final plat. And the developer has an obligation per all these conditions to mitigate any impacts to the wetland protection zone and to establish that protection area management plan. So it's all embodied in the process to be addressed. So by the time we get to the final plat, it's all taken care of.
I see. So it's a developer's responsibility to do any of those mitigation kinds of processes with the wetland until all the homes are sold to the final plat? How does that work?
It's established because that stuff needs to be recorded, if I remember right, before or at the same time as the final plat. So it's all kind of created at the same time.
I see.
And embodied in the legal documents for the homeowners association is the maintenance responsibility for that wetland area.
Okay, so if I'm the first buyer and I buy one of those lots and no one else has kind of gone forward into buying it, but just for say, then it's up to myself then and the builder to work out that mitigation of the wetland. We're responsible, right?
Yeah, so at that time, the homeowners association includes 17 lots owned by Bailey Construction.
I get it.
And then one owned by Morton.
Okay, I get it. Okay, and so when does Mr. Bailey get out of the loop? Is that when there's most of the lots are sold?
It works something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not terribly familiar with how it works. Obviously, we'll have attorneys working on
Over
legal
50%
documentation.
or something like
something
that,
like
and then
that.
make
That's what I've heard.
Okay, right. I was just wondering.
Sure.
I think sometimes it could even be less than 50% because he'd still be the majority owner of the bulk of the property. So he'd be like the president of that homeowners association with the most pull, which is not bad if you're developing and you have CCRs in place. Keeps your homes up.
It's certainly an incentive
Yes.
to keep it looking nice because that's going to help with your market value.
Yep.
You done with me for now?
We are.
Do you want to call the folks up, or do you want me to?
Well, go ahead, Jacob. I don't have that up here.
All right, I'm going to change positions. So now would be the time for the applicant's presentation.
I was an engineer to read emails better. He's in route. So I'm on the hook. I'm not an engineer, I'm a builder, and all I can tell you is we've done everything we've been asked to this far, and we've made all the criteria. You did have some questions on the HOA, and one thing we will be doing as you purchase lots, we are funding the HOA at that time. So it will be funded from the get-go. So you won't have to worry about people paying in as they go. It will be actually funded from the very beginning. So then there'll be monthly fees or yearly fees after that to maintain that, but it will be 100% funded from the very beginning to maintain. There's not a lot to be a wetland, and then the fencing and stuff like that. So replanting the wetland. I made an agreement with the people. They're in the county, but they're next to us about the triangle piece. They're selling it to $1. I don't want to have that piece down my track anyway, so that's done. We just need to wait till we get surveys done, in which we can do a lot line adjustment at that time. We cannot do that at this time. It's going to be a real nice little development. Every house will be different because all the lots are different. It's not a tract home. I don't build tract homes. I'm just here. Throw whatever questions you got for me. I'll do the best I can. I apologize for Mr. Kessie. He thought the meeting was at 7, and he's en route from Vancouver, so he'll be here shortly. But I can do what I can do. So
I'm somewhat interested in the wetland and that issue. What's your monitoring length of time agreed with the DSL? Do you know?
not a clue. We've hired a wetlands specialist, and and as we go further forward, they will make up the plan for what the proper procedure to maintain the wetland, and that will be done from a soil engineer and wetland specialist.
So you've already anticipated, Rich, the planting and the upgrading.
Correct. And that will be we're budgeting in for a replant, and I think they predict like a 50% turn on the plants to replant. So that'll be all budgeted into our development and part of the agreement that we will.
And just to be clear, then the homeowners association assumes that responsibility of monitoring for, I'm probably thinking a period of 6 years, 5 to 6 years.
I thought it was something like I thought it was something that was mentioned 5 years or something like that.
If it fails, then the homeowners association comes back and hires that consultant to replant, redo, and start all over again until the 5-year period is signed off. Correct?
And it's like I said, it'll be funded already, and then we are paying for the replant, the second replant. I don't think they plan on doing it. You do it the first year and you do it the third year. There's a landscape. I don't know about plants, but I know they anticipate a 50% loss and a replanting.
I was curious how you're negotiating that.
Yeah.
Sounds like
it sounds like, and from what I understand from so far, it's going to be a pretty easy wetland to maintain just because of what it is. It's pretty much a brush, and it's going to be some grass and stuff like that.
I think it is 5 years. I've done a few of those projects, and you have to come through and weed eat down the grass. Some, believe it or not, some you actually add a sprinkler system to above ground, even the pipe, and you actually irrigate it the whole time until the 5 years is up, and then
I've seen those where it's a little drier soil, and sometimes they have to make a wetland, so they got to add water to it. I know my daughter lived on one they irrigated, but it was because it was a dry area and they had to enhance it, I guess, to keep it alive. This, I don't anticipate you're going to have to do that. We're going to be planting plants that will not need the water. You don't want to water them. I mean, that's a waste of water. So it is a wetland. So there's a swale down by, is it Mountain View, the main road coming in? Yeah. So there's a swale down there that holds water. I don't know, probably till right now there's 6 inches in there or something like that, but just a little pond. Whenever it rains, it goes through there. Yes. I wish I was a better expert for you, and I could waste a lot of time. And
curious.
The filibuster, I could wait for my engineer. I could talk for an hour here and talk real slow.
that's right.
I just, like I said, I apologize. I wish there was more I could tell you. It's like I said, he'll be here shortly. I know it doesn't do you any good right now, and he threw me to the wolves, but he made a mistake. He thought it was 7:00, and he's en route, and it's too far away to. But he didn't piss any problems. I've been talking to him on the phone. He thought everything was covered. So, like I said, if you have anything more, I can do it best I can.
At the time of the Plan Commission, you guys were still waiting to hear back from the fire marshal?
And that's not part of this part at this time. Fire marshal comes in when I take out building permits at that point. That's when the fire marshal gets involved. So when I go in and apply for a permit, maybe like on lot 7 or something like that, he'll make a recommendation of a sprinkler system. And I'm anticipating that on about 4 of those lots in there. And but that's not really at this point. That's when you apply for a permit.
Then I had another question. I only listen to the planning commission. I am not a voting body there, but just as a prospective home buyer, how would someone know that half of your backyard you can't play with?
That will be posted. That's why we're putting. They have to put the fence in. That's what the discussion was. The fence is to dedicate it as a wetland. Will be posted as a wetland, and I'm sure there'll be a signage of what you can do and can't do. Kind of like if you ever played Pumpkin Ridge Golf Course, they have wetlands all over. There's a little sign saying this is, since the very. But they want it. We want to be able to use it as a common space too. We're making a path through it. We want it to be. Yes, obviously you're not going to be walking through wet water, but we got a 50-foot buffer around the wetland too. So you got plenty of area in which you're not affecting the wetland, but we're not building in that zone either.
In looking at the drawing, and I know that we're not discussing the plat here, but it just looked like there's some of the homes, the fence was going to be really close to the back of the house.
Correct.
How
But,
close is the closest?
well, all the dotted lines are actually building areas. That's not where the house is. That's the areas we can build in and not be within it. So when you see a dotted line, that's the maximum it would be. The house could be shorter than that, but we just dashed out where the building zone would be.
Within that zone.
In that zone. That's my setback, side yard setbacks, front setbacks, back setback, wetland setbacks are all. I just have to be inside those areas. Yes, and it will be close on a couple of them if I go really deep on the houses, but also you have to maintain it that way too. So it's. Some people might say that as a negative. Some people might say as a positive. So.
And then just for the record, the sizes of the house, the smallest house square footage and the largest, do you have any idea?
I've been looking at somewhere starting around 1,800 square feet, and probably within this area, you'd probably go up to about 2,200 to 2,300. Yeah. Much bigger than that would be too big for the lots, yes. So I'd just say an average of 21, and nice family homes.
Is that average for our market?
In that area, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Is any of this in flood zones? Any of these lots?
No, we have the wetland surveyed. We're 50 feet out of the wet. That's just a wetland. It's not a flood zone.
Rich, is that line around a cul-de-sac? Does that represent sidewalk area, or what does that represent?
Yes, that's sidewalk area around it. It's going to have a rolled curb on it, so it makes it a little longer for the radius. They've changed, so we have a 96-foot radius now. So they'll have a rolled curb, but they can't make anything roll up, and the sidewalk will be built a little heavier in those areas.
Any other questions for Rich?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, so is there anybody out there who would like to speak in support of this application? I don't see any takers. Is there anybody who would like to provide testimony who's neutral to this application? Still no takers. All right. How about those who may be opposed to this application?
That'll be your chance if you guys want to come up.
Come on up. And
So, yeah, if you would like to provide testimony in opposition, yeah, please come up to the mic.
Hi guys, I don't recognize a few of you. Been here all along. I missed the first one.
Yeah, could you state your name, please?
I'm Daniel Kepke, Koepke. I live at 34815 Westboro Way.
Okay.
Okay. Kind of learn as I'm going here. It's kind of hard to find some of the laws when I look online, like for the zone overlay. That one really is stinging me. Because I believe that was supposed to be used for like one or two lots if we couldn't fit something right, not for a whole development. This is a monstrosity. This is like, that does not give you scale. If you stand up where I live, right above it, and you look down and you try to put 18 houses where there's 5 or 6 normally, it's an abomination. I'm sorry. I just don't get it. And our house was built on property that never got okayed by Bonneville, the right-of-way. That street I live on, Westboro Way right there, has not been okayed by Bonneville. The road he's building on, they've got no permission from Bonneville to build on this road. Do you guys understand that?
How'd that get by the planning commission?
I don't know. It seems like this has been rushed through, and I keep hearing legalities. They're afraid they're going to get sued, I guess. This is from the people afterwards. You know, this started out to be a couple lots when they first heard about it. Then it got up to 7 to 8. Then he hires a new consulting company. And they go, hey, we can get 18 of those suckers over there now. Because I think they're just totally abusing that zone overlay. It does not fit with the surrounding area whatsoever. I mean, you take a sixth grader, a kid that can count to 10, and go, how many houses fit there? If he says more than 5 or 6, I'd be amazed. And they want to put 18 in these dinky little lots. And they point out one lot in our neighborhood that is small, but you can go 300 feet north, south, west, whatever, and there's not another house, and they're going to cram these things in like sardines. When they came out to move the cable box, they noticed that our road is falling apart. It will not support extra traffic. It's already cracking and sliding. The sidewalk by the wetlands is falling off and going down towards the creek. This is not a stable area. And that wetland thing, too, they haven't even got a final okay on what they're going to do with the water. That creek goes high-low. Those people all downstream are getting floods all the time. And now they're going to take this slow trickle and channel it up towards the front and don't think that creek's going to go high-low on these people and flood them out. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. This whole thing is like these fences and all. 25 feet, they're going to put in people's backyard and tell them they can't do anything. There's going to be a fence for that 50-foot buffer. Really. You know, homeowners association, you get some dominant players, probably people down by the creek. They ain't going to care. That's their property. It's in their backyard. There's a fence. You know, this is just, you know, legally, I guess, if you work the law just right and state it just right, you can do this, but it's not a good idea. I think we totally lost the color of the law here as far as fitting into the normal neighborhood by first getting the zone overlay and then taking it to some consulting company that says, whoa, you know, with this, we could probably get 18 and really maximize your bang for the buck off this deal. It's just not right. There's kids in that neighborhood. These side roads going on to Sykes Road. I come out on Mountain View, and that turns tight when you want to turn out from the road there. I can imagine being even closer to that turn and trying to come out on the road. You're just asking for an accident. Asking for an accident. I mean, there's not enough room with that curve to be able to see if anybody's coming or not. I mean, there's so many wrong ideas with this thing. And according to your laws or what I read on the internet, you guys are supposed to actually consider the public's input. I've seen none of that. It's all gone one way. One way. And that's to Rich Bailey. And then after the meeting, well, you know, legally he could sue us. You know, what? Is the city so afraid of that? I mean, is that what's going on? I don't know. They're so afraid they're going to be sued that they're going to do whatever. And to have a unanimous vote on such a monstrosity is just, God, there's just so many things. That water runoff's big, the private roads, that 8 properties are going to be on that water line. You can have 8 different people you're going to expect to respect the law and not do what they want to do in their own backyards with that fence. You know, this is just, it's not good. It's not good. But it really, it irks me that they go ahead and okay roads when they have no permission to go there. Even that road I'm on, that last little west part of Westboro, has not been okayed by Bonneville. The house I live in was not okayed by Bonneville. I've had to do 60 feet of fencing, 2 sections of 30 feet. You know, it's just, I don't think that zone overlay is being applied correctly here. I think it was to make allowances if you had an odd size, maybe make 2 lots, but to make all that 18 lots. Look at your pictures up here. Look at how tiny those houses are compared to the lots surrounding everything here. That's just, that you lose all perception of depth looking at that. You stand out there and you look down there and picture 18 houses. You could throw a rock across this thing. And even when you walk down to the bottom where supposedly the wetlands isn't, it's mushy. You know, Rich might even sell him a favor. He's going to have to put sub pumps in to put the foundations in. It's not a good idea, guys. I think it's getting pushed through. I wouldn't be, you know, it feels like somebody's glad handing here, honestly, to put that there. There's no place in St. Helens like this. Wetlands on one side, power lines on the other, and you want to cram 18 houses. Okay, I just like where's the permission to even build a road? Where's the permission for my road? No. And when we finally do get the drainage okayed, who's going to verify that that's going to work? 'Cause that's a lot of water to channel up there in that small little creek with people downstream. They've already put plastic in their basement, sub pumps. What's that going to do? That's going to make it really high low. There's no way around it. That's got a nice gradual drip, drip, drip filter all the way through. And that's clay soil too. I mean, that stuff's going to run. If they channel it, it's going to go straight up to that creek real fast. Okay, that's about it. A lot of children in that neighborhood too. Maybe that road should be improved and speed bumps put in or something, because 180 cars they said we'd get. And that road is falling apart, guys. It's got extra road map underneath it because I've seen it. It's not going to take it. And Bonneville's not happy with this idea either, by the way. That's what the gal Lisa I talked to at Bonneville says. They're not real keen on this going down.
You fielding questions or clarification on your testimony at this point?
Like what?
Well, you mentioned Bonneville quite a bit.
Yeah, because
My question is, what are the restrictive conditions? Do you know the restrictive conditions that Bonneville imposes on developments, and where has this, along with that, where has this gone astray?
Well,
do you know?
Westboro, the part of the street I live on, that extra 50 feet they put in, they did not have permission to put there.
So it's all it is. All you're saying is permission.
So far, yeah. What if they say no?
But Bonneville has not.
They said
does
they were
not
not
have
happy
anything in
with it.
writing in terms of any conditions of not building under the lines or building so close to the lines. What is it? Does anyone know?
I don't. Do you know, Rich? Do you have permission? Oh, well, according to them, they have no permission. They've received nothing in writing or anything. You know, this is just being slid under their nose, and they might not be happy with it, and she's not.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you, David.
Sorry. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in opposition of this matter? I don't see any. The applicant may rebut if they so choose.
I'll make it quick because you might have a couple questions. I've heard enough, but I'm not doing anything illegal. Our lot sizes are well above what they need to be. We could have gone smaller on them. I refuse to go smaller on the lots. All my lots will be built out of the wetland. I cannot blame the builder next door that built houses in wetlands. They have wet basement or wet crawl spaces. Mine will not, because they're above that level. Okay, we address those type of things. I did not build those houses in that neighborhood. Bonneville, we are required to keep a clear path, no fences. They have fences inside that buffer zone. You can see it marked on that dotted line on the map. That's the clear zone right there. So we have to say out, no fences in those areas. You got to clean up. Apparently when they did their subdivision, the builder thought he was doing good. He put fences around their yards. Well, there's a section there that they're not supposed to have fences. They've been asked to remove those fences. So that's what I know about the Bonneville thing. It's just basically you can't build underneath it. It is still my property. It's an easement for Bonneville to run their lines across my property. So anything else?
What's your average square foot on your lots, Rich?
They're anywhere. The smallest is 6. I think the biggest is around 8,000, 8,800, something like that. So they're all over the place.
So they're all bigger than city lots. So
Correct.
It's Keith. It's actually on that map. There's a small table there to the right of the plat that has the lot size breakdown, and at the very bottom, it specifies the average lot size, which
is a R7.
Was that a question?
No, I said which is a R7 average.
Yes.
I had just a question, not for Rich, but for our city engineer. Is there anything that can happen on this subdivision property that would affect those people on West Barrel? Is there things, will that have a cross effect? And is there anything I know that they had a wetland report. I just want to get your input on.
There could potentially be if they didn't take any measures to counteract that. But from what I've read from what's been submitted to us for preliminary work is that they are doing some wetland mitigation and doing improvements that will retain and detain some of the runoff coming from that development, so that our code requirements require that they keep water on their site or in some sort of system and release it at a slower rate than what came off of the development before anything was done there. That's written in our code. And from what they've provided, the information that they've provided preliminarily, it shows that it actually exceeds that requirement. So that until we get final design.
I wanted your statements in the record because at the Plan Commission there was testimony that corroborates what the testimony here said about wet basements and stuff, which is not Mr. Bailey's problem at all. He didn't build those houses, but you know, it'd be my desire to not add to their burden.
And that's our desire too.
Yeah.
We absolutely don't want to add or don't want to see a development add any further issues to
Right. I just wanted it.
any adjacent.
I wanted it
developments.
in the commentary because I know Jacob had said that you had looked at it and there was reports in there and there was a statement by you and stuff.
Yes,
Thank you.
that is true.
We have our notice affidavits in our file. So the applicant's consultants showed up after rebuttal, which makes things a little awkward. I think if they want to talk, the fair thing would be to reopen the applicant's presentation and go through all that all over again.
Was that during rebuttal or after rebuttal?
Well, technically we're still in the rebuttal phase because Rich got up and sat down for the purposes of rebuttal. The consultants weren't here to hear the testimony in opposition, and I'm sure they can imagine what some of the comments were. But it provides, it's a little weird in this process. So that would be my recommendation, is to go through that order again if the consultants wish to speak.
I think we're okay. You think okay? Yeah, I think we're okay. I think
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
That would probably be okay if you have general questions for them while they're here. Though, to be fair, I think if anybody else wants another chance to talk, they should probably have it.
Can the consultant confer with Mr. Bailey, the builder, and Mr. Bailey then answer? Like as if he was an attorney?
I've worn many hats.
There's nothing that
No,
says
as if the consultant was an attorney.
that's an option.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that rather than playing this all back again, it's 6:45,
That way it's
and if that's applicable to Mr. Bailey, I'd certainly like it to go see it go that way.
I'm thinking either way. We do have got 15 minutes, so
we can probably go through the presentation again. So.
Okay.
So, do you want me to speak?
if you'd not like to, then
We can do
Yeah, that's fine.
a supplemental presentation, applicant supplemental presentation.
Sure. And then if there's, is there anything that you want to?
They had questions on the wetland and how long we were on to maintain the wetland after development, and I knew we had an agreement. I thought it was something like 5 years or something like that.
You want to state your name?
My name is James Kessie, the project manager and project engineer for Kessie Engineering Consulting. My address is 6400 Northeast Highway 99, Vancouver 98665. And in general, the project does comply with all of the wetland criteria, the plan unit development criteria, and the subdivision criteria. The final wetland mitigation plan will be designed in accordance to meet the city and the state regulations for wetlands. And whatever monitoring period is required, we will, be subject to that and comply with that. And then after the wetland, we have to. One of the conditions in the development agreement is to put in a fence, which we will work with the city staff to come up with a fence that allows the ability to create separation, but also not create too much of a barrier, so that is a workable solution. And there will also be a homeowner association that's created as part of this development, and it'll be funded, and it'll have bylaws and CC&Rs that will set up a mechanism to provide permanent funding for. There's a trail for the wetland facility itself, or the wetland, I should say, and then the stormwater facilities, which are draining down and ultimately drain into the wetland. So everything will have funding and have a permanent set of rules to follow and guidelines that we have to comply with, and that the HOA would have to comply with. As far as there's questions about the fence and the trail, and we had gone through all of the deliberations with the planning commissions on the subdivision itself, and so we worked out all those details, and just wanted to remind everyone that we're focused on the development agreement and whatever the issues are primarily with that development agreement, but we'd be happy to answer any of the other questions, because the way the process is set up, that the city council doesn't actually get to sit in on the subdivision portion of it. So was there anything else? HOA. Yeah.
And I think Rich said everything you said, so good job, Rich.
Right
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
So, Rick, you're basically the captain of the ship. You're running the meeting.
Okay.
Under the circumstances, do you want to provide the opportunity for any supplemental testimony under these circumstances?
I would. Yep.
Okay. So, I don't think we'll have any neutral or in favor testimony. Sure.
My name is Shauna Strop Harrison. I'm a real estate agent. I'm just have a couple questions because there was a couple things that were brought up. I just happened to stop in. One of my things is I was wondering, is there going to be any sidewalk improvements on Sykes Road to accommodate this development?
The portion that abuts the subject property will be required to be developed with the frontage improvements, including a sidewalk.
Okay, so there will be a sidewalk on Sykes Road then?
For the portion that abuts the subject property, yes.
Okay. Because there was a development that was done up on Edna Bar, and there's been a lot of talks about the improvement of the infrastructure that didn't happen as planned or as initiated eventually for that whole development up off of Edna Bar. So I was concerned about sidewalks. And then also I heard mention of R7, but I heard that some of the lots, or that the smallest lot was under 7,000 square feet. So is that true? Isn't R7 7,000 square foot minimum?
Yes. So the overlay zone is the answer for that. The plan development lets you essentially throw out the minimum lot size. And the council did adopt an overlay zone for this property. And so it provides flexibility on several matters, including lot size, lot dimension, and yard or setback requirements.
Okay. All right. And let me see. I think I made one more note of one thing that I was questioning. I was just curious. I don't know a lot about this development to be opposed or not opposed to it or anything of that. That's why I'm here neutral. Ultimately, my biggest goal is to see that we have made livability, infrastructure improvements to accommodate all of the growth that is happening out here in our community, which is happening vastly. Obviously, there's a huge need for housing. I know Rich Bailey makes, he builds great homes. I don't doubt that by any stretch of the imagination. I obviously have some concerns about the wetlands, but I do know there's a due process that has to be done with that, which it sounds like he's meeting those requirements. I do wonder where the storm drain system, where is it going to drain into?
That would be an excellent question for the applicant's consultant, since they're the ones who are designing it. Which would probably be a good point of rebuttal for them, even though you're not. It's a question.
These are just questions. I'm not here opposed or in favor. I just wanted to get some clarification on a couple of those things. That was all. I was just, so that was the one question I have for them for that rebuttal. You did that for the overlay. And then also for the rebuttal, do they have a price point that they're thinking for these homes? Just, that's it. So I think that's it.
Thanks.
Okay, is there any more testimony that's not opposition? Okay, any supplemental opposition testimony? You want another shot? Okay.
Will you state your name again, Daniel?
Yeah, Dan Kepke, Koepke, 34815 Westboro Way, St. Helens. It's not, that storm drain was a big issue. What happens if Bonneville does say no to this? Because they don't want the liabilities underneath their power lines of the cars going down the road. What do we do then? Say if Bonneville says no to putting the road there, what do you guys do?
We would have to seek legal counsel on our approach. Though the one thing I'd point out is there are many subdivisions in town that have Bonneville easement through them, and there's many examples of roads going through there. In our conversation with Bonneville and past developments, their issue is with buildings.
Okay, it just seems funny you guys are putting the cart before the horse here, but I would think you'd want permission before you got too far down the line. No? I mean, you don't even have permission, like I say, for the road I'm on.
If Bonneville wants to send us something that expresses that, it would certainly take into consideration.
Okay. Oh, yeah, again, nobody in my neighborhood got letters for this meeting tonight.
Do you want me to respond to the legal notice
yes, I
requirements?
do.
Sure, okay. So the development agreement was sent at the same time as I think the subdivision preliminary plat, so they were combined in the same letter. This shows the notice area here, and the list of property owners, of which there are 64 people included. And what was your address? 34815 Westboro. I see it. Well, we do have an affidavit of mailing, so that's something if you wanted to look in the file to see.
So, Jacob, it was a combined notice for both the plat and this, went out on the same note.
Yes, that's what I remember.
So it's possible that people saw the planning commission and thought that was just one meeting, but really there was two.
It's possible. Legal notices, just like staff reports, they're not the funnest thing to read.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Sure. So supplemental rebuttal.
James Kessie Engineering. There was a question regarding the sidewalks and to reconfirm the sidewalks will be constructed along Sykes Road and along any of the frontage, interior frontage that requires sidewalks per the city code. So there will be adequate circulation. And in addition, there will be a pedestrian connection from the end of the cul-de-sac on Forest Trail Circle, and then it actually goes along between lots 9 and 10, and then winds its way over to Bailey Court and down to Sykes Road. So we wanted to make sure we had some connection between pedestrian connection between those 2 points. In addition, yes, the overlay zone was adopted by council, and the underlying zoning is 7,000 square feet. Because of the wetlands and because of some of the lot dimensional restrictions that we have, and in we're preserving all the wetlands, and to meet those standards, the reason why we did the plan development was to try to have just a little bit of flexibility in the code. The average lot size actually is over 7,000 square feet, so we're not really asking for any increase in density, just some flexibility in the dimensional standards for the lots. The stormwater ultimately does drain down to the wetland where it currently goes, and we've designed the stormwater system to collect all the water on the site and also to anticipate water that's off the site and direct it through the site. Before the water is released, it'll be treated in accordance with the city regulations, and then released to the wetland, and as it'll also receive detention to comply with the city's stormwater requirements, and those all meet the standards. There was a question regarding the Bonneville easement, and the owner, Rich Bailey, actually owns the land there, and there's a BPA easement over the top of it, and we're not placing any structures in the BPA easement, and we're just doing what's been done on several other projects in the city, providing roadway and access to the project. I mean, Westboro Road is that we're stepping off of is in the easement. So that's the only way we can actually access the site from that point. So we really don't have any options, and it'll be as part of the process, we have to get the city approval first, regardless of what happens there. And the BPA approval is, I'm not really sure what they would do in this situation, but we're not proposing any structures. I think that's the only limitation that I'm aware of. And let's see, was there any other question? Was there anything else that council or staff wanted covered? If not, then I'll be happy to answer any other questions, or make sure that we get everything satisfied. Thanks.
you have any final questions for staff before you close the public record?
I've got a concern, Jacob. The concern regards the question that Daniel brought forward about everyone that should have received notice. Do we have proof of that? Do you know definitely, from the city's point of view, do you know definitely that those were sent out?
Yeah, we had the same concern from Emerald Meadows. A lot of people said they didn't get it. We take our notice requirements very seriously because it's a statutory requirement. And the last thing you want to do is to put a bunch of effort to it and get it sidelined because of a procedural error. So there's a 300-foot radius requirement, and we have two obligations. We have an obligation to make sure it's published in the newspaper, and that those within 300 feet of the property get a letter. And we have an affidavit of mailing to prove that we've done that. You know, what happens when we send it out to the mailbox is out of our control. And so that's the best answer I can give, frankly.
Okay, so it is a definite that you did send them out. And do you need more time to investigate that by chance? Do you need could we delay our deliberations for 3 weeks until the next council meeting to deliberate? Do you need that time to make certain that they were sent out?
I think the question is if you as a council would want to see that documentation before making your decision. I know it's in the file.
Okay, no, the question is, are you definitely sure that it's sent out? You're okay with it?
I'm okay. I personally didn't handle that part. That was something Jenny did. But I know the information that we require is in the file.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Kathy, do you want to roll right into the next, or do we have to take a break?
Yeah, you need to close the public hearing.
Yep. Okay. The public hearing is closed. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll get on with regular session.
So David, I was going to